period.
So there's not two Cumorahs. There is a Cumorah from the Book of Mormon, and then there's a final resting place of the golden plates, which in the Book of Mormon is never identified as Cumorah. Look at Mormon chapter 6, verse 6. Read the text and start writing down the features that are associated with Hill Cumorah, and your model better match that. It's going to be in the land northward. It's going to be surrounded by basically a plain, and it's going to be near an eastern seashore. Those are all features from the text of the Book of Mormon. So if your location of Hill Cumorah doesn't match the features that are listed in the Book of Mormon itself, you have a Book of Mormon problem, not a Mesoamerican problem.
Oh, wow, dude, that was fiery words, baby. I dig it, man. That was like, whoo! That's
but I'm a text.
Tapatio. He put some Tapatio on that one.
Ooh, good choice.
All of the scriptural references used in this episode will be brought to you by scripturenotes.com. For a free trial to Scripture Notes, please visit the link in the description. Okay, so I got a question for you. And this is the only question I remember lingering from when Jonathan Neville was in the studio. Okay? Because when these guys come, everybody makes a good arguments, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's awesome. I nod in my head. I'm like, oh, I got to ask Josh, and I got to ask Jerry when they come back in, and I forget what all the questions are and what all the details are. But one I remember now that I thought was really interesting is they always pan the necessity of two Hill Cumorahs in order to explain a Mesoamerican geography model, right? Or like, how, if you believe the Book of Mormon came to pass in Mesoamerica, do you explain the Hill Cumorah in New York?
Well, and Josh can maybe add, but one of the things is it wasn't named Hill Cumorah. I mean, Jonathan Neville thinks he finds it was an after the fact, meaning they didn't call it Hill Cumorah initially. It was just a hill in New York near his home. And so the Cumorah added was later in church history.
That was just that was what we could call just more of the pioneer folklore that just bubbled to the surface.
Because they actually had a hemispheric model. So they thought that Cumorah was probably Cumorah. They thought that Lehi landed in Chile. They thought that these Mesoamerican ruins where this book came out, Joseph Smith, that was in the Time Season. Of course, Jonathan Neville basically says, hey, he wasn't really editing this. Okay. There's all these arguments that way. So that's one of the premises, is that it really wasn't the Hill Cumorah.
Also, was he not saying like, oh, this is a revelation? It was just maybe personal speculation, or what?
Well, he often uses letter 7 that Oliver Cowdery wrote, and it's basically a recounting of the war that happened around Cumorah and all this, but it wasn't like a new revelation. He was just kind of reciting what was in the Book of Mormon. But he says, hey, but he called it Hill Cumorah. Oliver Cowdery did. So that must mean it's the original Cumorah. But again, in 1830, November, it's in the newspaper. He's out preaching. Oliver, he's got Frederick G. Williams is barely baptized, talking about Lehi landing in Chile. So it's, you really have these statements from early church leaders, Oliver, Joseph, whatever they are, and they seem to be more looking at, they're thinking it's all, the South Hemisphere is land southward. So that's where they try to like extrapolate that somehow there was a revelatory statement that this is the Hill Cumorah talked about. Yeah. So that's one. The other one that is actually...
And I would just jump in and say, from my perspective, as a little bit of a quote-unquote outsider, just a fervent Book of Mormon believer.
Yeah, Book of Mormon stan.
Yeah, I have a couple of responses to this, but just tied to what Jerry started out with. For me, if you're quoting 19th century people who are making statements about locations of the Book of Mormon, that all you are doing to me is admitting an anachronism. That's an anachronism. What Oliver Cowdery thought about where Hill Cumorah was is irrelevant to the Book of Mormon text. That's an anachronism to use Oliver Cowdery as a source about where Hill Cumorah is.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, and
All
see,
right.
that's the approach. I don't use all these early statements when I'm doing Book of Mormon studies, unless it's like describing the plates, and I'm trying to look at the metallurgy of the plates, or they're actually describing an object. Or
the Book of Mormon needs to be the source
exactly
about
right.
where things are and what happens. Yes, there's a hill in New York where the Book of Mormon plates are procured, but where in the Book of Mormon does Moroni say, I now finish my record, and I, before I die or before I'm translated, am now burying the plates that I have in a hill that I am calling Cumorah? That does not exist in the Book of Mormon. We presume that in the text. But yes, Moroni has about a 35-year window in the chronology to bury the plates in a hill, if he chooses to bury them in a hill.
So you think he just walked up from Central America and made it to New York in a 35-year foot journey? I mean, the Spaniards did go all the way from...
Doesn't even have to be a foot journey. I mean, you can get within 100 miles or so just via waterways.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. I mean,
yeah.
and the Spaniards famously, they walked all the way from, wasn't it like Louisiana to the Grand Canyon in some 7-month period?
So there's not two Cumorahs. There is a Cumorah from the Book of Mormon, and then there's a final resting place of the golden plates, which in the Book of Mormon is never identified as Cumorah. Look at Mormon chapter 6, verse 6.
Okay, I'm pulling this up right now. This argument, Mesoamerican versus Heartlanders, sponsored by Scripture Notes. No, just kidding. So where am I going again with this?
Yeah, Mormon chapter 6, verse 6, which says, And it came to pass that when we had gathered in all our people in one to the land of Cumorah, behold, I, Mormon, began to be old, and knowing it to be the last struggle of my people, and having been commanded of the Lord that I should not suffer the records which had been handed down by our fathers, which were sacred, to fall into the hands of the Lamanites, for behold, the Lamanites would destroy them. Therefore I made this record out of the plates of Nephi, and hid up in the hill Cumorah all the records which had been entrusted to me by the hand of the Lord. What's the last line say?
Save it were these few plates which I gave unto my son Moroni.
So within the Book of Mormon record, there is a hill that is Hill Cumorah. There is a hill that is the last battle location for this great story of our Book of Mormon account. And in that place are a myriad of plates that Mormon had access to, except for the plates that turn into the Book of Mormon.
So if we follow a Mesoamerican model as you guys
No, if we
do,
follow a Book of Mormon model,
Okay.
the Book of Mormon text, I don't care what model you have.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where. Based on the Book of Mormon text, there is a hill called Hill Cumorah that has a myriad of plates inside of it somewhere.
that's the Cave of Records, right?
Well, it doesn't even have to be it doesn't say a cave in the text, okay? It's not a cave in the text. It's a hill that has buried in it all the plates Mormon had access to, except for the Book of Mormon plates.
Yeah. So all I'm getting at is I'm saying that, okay, so if we're following a Book of Mormon model, okay, I'm sorry if I said Mesoamerican.
Anywhere you want to put it.
But I'm saying, okay, so if we read the Book of Mormon, Mormon says, okay, and I hadn't really noticed that detail. I'm very glad that you brought that up. I hadn't really noticed that previously. So if you then believe that the Book of Mormon model is best evidenced in Mesoamerica, somewhere there's a cave in Mesoamerica.
Forget cave. Book of Mormon never says cave.
Sorry, not a cave.
I don't care what Brigham Young said. That's anachronistic to the text.
Okay, I get it. So not a cave, not a stone-made ark, but somewhere there's let's just call it a room, I would assume, because you'd have to put it somewhere.
A resting place.
A resting place. That's a word. That's okay.
A depository.
Depository. That's an even better word. Okay. So somewhere in Mesoamerica, some archaeologist is someday, hopefully, going to discover the resting place or the depository of the Nephite, Lamanite, Jaredite, Mulekite, Anti-Nephite, Lehite, Zoramite record and everything that was compiled in that resting place. That is the coolest Indiana Jones episode that has yet to be made.
Well, however, if you look at the Book of Mormon itself, it only talks about 4 sets of plates.
Correct.
That were really engraved on.
Correct.
So everyone's assuming all these metal plates all over the place. That's not what the Book of Mormon text indicates. It indicates the opposite. Yes, there were other records, all these things, but it doesn't. The implication really is that you have the plates of Nephi, small plates,
large plates,
the Jaredite set
24
of plates.
plates, yeah.
Right. And then you have some translation of the record of the brother of Jared that presumably is in the sealed portion. Presumably those are metal plates, right? Because it's in the stack.
Presumably, yeah.
So what's this whole like vision of a cave of records with Joseph Smith? When like this is Joseph Smith stuff?
No, it's not Joseph Smith stuff. That is a statement from Brigham Young.
That's a statement from Brigham Young,
which again is just that's not from the Book of Mormon. That's a 19th century anachronism. Okay, so you can't use that for geography. Now, the Book of Mormon text describes a number of features of Hill Cumorah. The Hill Cumorah in the Book of Mormon is near an eastern seashore. I mean, this is basic stuff. You can just do a word search on Book of Mormon, on Hill Cumorah in the Book of Mormon, read the text, and start writing down the features that are associated with Hill Cumorah, and your model better match that. It's going to be in the land northward. It's going to be surrounded by basically a plain, and it's going to be near an eastern seashore. Those are all features from the text of the Book of Mormon. So if your location of Hill Cumorah doesn't match the features that are listed in the Book of Mormon itself, you have a Book of Mormon problem, not a Mesoamerican problem.
Oh, interesting. Wow, dude, that was some fiery words, baby. I dig it, man. That was like, whoo! That's
but I'm a text.
Tapatio. He put some Tapatio on that one.
Ooh, good choice. Good choice, Tapatio. Yeah, I like that.
I have a couple points. Again, one is on the whether they saw this repository, this vision. He doesn't. Don't need to really talk about it in terms of the Book of Mormon, but if you look at it critically, it says that they had the sword of Laban. It says it was perfectly shiny and everything, and we drawn in the millennium. Number one, that's not how Joseph Smith Sr. described the sword of Laban. He said it was almost like rusted away, and all that was left was a gold hilt with a chain on it.
Oh, interesting.
Second, are they really going to write in English on the blade of the sword of Laban?
Yeah.
where they're seeing this vision. I'm just saying, for me, if it's anything, it's some sort of vision of something, but it's not necessarily representing where a specific location or whatever. It may just be a figure, some idea. That's one. The second is this notion of Moroni alone walking. It said he was.
Oh, that's epic. The stoic warrior traveling entire lengths with nothing but a sword and his knowledge of how to live off the fat of the land and a big 60-pound thing.
And apparently a girlfriend, according to the latest movie.
Oh, yeah. I didn't see that one. But yeah.
Here's what I'm saying is.
And he's got a limp. Don't forget the limp. And he's walking along like.
I mean, you had people on before that said, oh, how could he haul this? All these plates, all this weight. Number one, it's like he does say he's alone right after the final battle. He implies he's alone after he's finished the record of Ether, and it's probably that maybe I'm not opposed to saying Josh read the section where it says all he gave was these particular plates. It's clear he's up in the North Countries, is what he says. He does the abridgment of Ether. So
he can go back and reference things.
Yeah. So I'm not saying he was still
sure.
But then from that point, it's like around year 400. He doesn't bury him till 420. Who says he's alone? Right? He may have had some friend. It's kind of strange to think he's like a hermit or something like that.
So you think some friend buried the plates?
No. I'm just saying that he didn't. He may have just gone.
This is not the two Hill Cumorah. This is the two Moroni theory.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is the text doesn't say, so people apply that to the text. I'm just saying the reality is we know he got ore. Right, because he added to the play. He obviously was some trading. He wasn't out there mining it, probably. I mean, just saying. So he actually had some connections. He's knowing what's happening, right? They're hunting people down. If you deny Christ, well, he's talking to some people who are traveling. So there's some affiliations going on. So for me to say, and there's trade routes all the way up everywhere into North America from Mesoamerica. He could have just, gone with some people. They had, travois. He wasn't like packing them on his head or something like that.
Yeah.
There was also the 3 Nephites that were around, said they were ministering to him. So I guess what I'm saying, it doesn't even bother me if maybe he found a wife or something like that. I'm not endorsing that movie.
He does in the movie. He does. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, okay, what was
Darren Southam? Darren Southam.
Darren Southam.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, he was also a person, right? Who
absolutely
right.
Yes.
So I'm just kind of saying that they have this illusion of this Moroni, just like
did he also develop a midlife crisis hobby of fly fishing as well?
That's why he took the Mississippi.
I know I would.
Well, what I'm saying is we kind of just want it's this aggrandizement, I suppose, of prophets that they were people, right? And so it doesn't even bother me if he went up and he said, you know what, because this is a hill that I'm going to put records in, I'm going to call it the same as the one in Mesoamerica is called.
So
I'm not saying it did,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying it wouldn't bother me if they said, okay, Moroni called that hill also Cumorah because it was a hill where records were buried.
Okay.
So from a non-LDS but Book of Mormon loving perspective, when I looked into this, the 2 Cumorah attack is just, from my perspective, reading the text, reading the publications on all sides, is just a straw man that gets constructed to attack, because it's easy to say, okay, you're saying that there's 2 Cumorahs? It's like, no, like nobody today is saying that.
Yeah, the Mesoamericans aren't.
Nobody today is saying that. That's a construction from people that want to attack something that is not being published by anybody today. Nobody today is saying, oh, there's 2 Cumorahs. No. There is a hill Cumorah, and you have to account for the full description of that hill Cumorah within a real-world model. And there is a final resting place of the plates, which is not mentioned or named in the Book of Mormon at all.
Okay. Interesting.
I mean, the other thing too is I did a book on the actual plates, the box.
Yeah.
The box was put in a very strategic.
Ziff and the Magic Goggles. It's a really effective, great book.
Right, and so
that's your book.
Yes, the box was created. It's clear for preservation of metal records because there was 3 little pillars that he put the plates on, so they're separating from the sides from water. It's smooth, but the other thing is, it was at the top of the hill for a reason. Is because it sheds water. It had a large. I'm kind of like if there's some repository in the hill in the one in New York. Well, it's not going to be some cave they carved out of the side. It'd just be filled with water, right? Because I'm saying from a geologic standpoint, you're going to have to be up on the top of the crest or whatever. So when they kind of make this argument, there was some cave or something, I'm like, it's not consistent with what Moroni did and his knowledge of preserving metal records, if in fact you believe there's some repository full of metal records. So from a scientific standpoint, I'm like, this doesn't really jive kind of what's being represented. Of course, Josh doesn't even go there because he's right. The text doesn't say it. Why are we arguing about this thing that's anachronistic? I'm just saying there are problems with it, even just within itself. And from a consistency with the story doesn't really jive. So that's kind of my take on it.
All right, man. All right. Well, you answered my question. I thought this was going to be a 3-minuter. You know what I'm saying? But it's ended up being
you got an episode out of it.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Please make sure that you like and you share and you subscribe. Also, a big shout out for the debate we got coming up between Rod Meldrum and Luke Hansen on December 3rd in Vineyard, Utah. Go to WardRadio.com for tickets to that. Also, if you want to contribute, please check us out on Zelle, Venmo, or the Cash App. If you want to sign up for Ward Radio News, please also go to WardRadio.com. And last but not least, make sure you check out scripturenotes.com. Everybody has to read their scriptures every day, and there's no better way to read your scriptures than through scripturenotes.com. Either way, it's been real and it's been fun. It's been real fun. We'll see you guys in the next program.